Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Early Bird Anime with Meg and Dan.
I'm Meg.
And I'm Dan. And today, well, you just best get on your least conspicuous Ramblepants if you are a vampire, because we watched Blood, the Last Vampire, starring Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt.
It's a shame there is no anime of
Was it
Interview
Anne
with a
Rice?
Vampire. Yeah, Anne Rice.
Anna Rice, man? Okay, please. Okay, take it away. Take it away before I ruin the rest of the episode.
You already did. Anyway, Blood, the Last Vampire is a short animated film that was produced in 2000 by Production IG and was directed by Kitakubo Hiroyuki, who worked on the famous movie Akira and also directed the OVA series Golden Boy. The movie spawned a whole bunch of spin-offs, which included a one-volume manga sequel, 3 light novels, and a video game, and 2 alternate universe adaptations in the form of the 50-episode series Blood Plus and the 12-episode series Blood C, both of which were also produced by Production IG. There was also a 2009 live-action adaptation, which I guess was just a retelling of the original film. It was influenced heavily by Bram Stoker's Dracula and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I guess I can kind of see that. And the film was notable in that it was completely computer animated, inking, coloring, instead of the usual cell animation, and that gave it a really distinctive visual style. It was also pretty notable for the mixed English-Japanese dialogue, and it was set on a US military base. The film was licensed in the US and the UK by Manga Entertainment in 2000, and on the first week of its North American release, it sold over 100,000 copies, that's including DVD and VHS. It's currently got a rating of about 7 out of 10 on both IMDb and the website MyAnimeList. There's a lot of praise for the animation and the action sequences, but a lot of the criticism is definitely on the lack of plot and character development, the abrupt conclusion, all that jazz. We'll get into that. But Daniel, would you like to give us a brief summary of what this movie was about?
Of course, absolutely. It is 1966, and we are at an American
Yokota.
Air base in Japan. The base's high school residents are getting ready to throw their Halloween party, but mysterious deaths have been occurring in the area. Enter Saya, an angry young woman working with a mysterious organization, and that's all we know. She is tasked with infiltrating the school to locate students who aren't quite what they seem. Locate and murder them. That is her goal, because they are secretly huge, grotesque monsters known as chiropractors.
Close enough.
She does exactly that. The school nurse tags along too, because why not? Aside from the violence and the bloodshed, though, there's a gripping subplot about Saya needing a new sword because her old one has gotten too dull. This is the first I've read of this summary, so I'm really liking it. Meg,
I'm glad.
Meg, what did you think of, what is this called? Twilight. What did you think of Twilight?
I actually saw this movie on TV a really long time ago. I guess not that long ago. It was sometime over high school. I didn't remember a lot of it, and I can't remember if I had already seen the 50-episode series by that point or not. So clearly it wasn't very memorable. But watching this time around was pretty interesting for me because I'm a pretty big fan of the 50-episode series Blood Plus. So I thought it was interesting to see where this franchise got its start, to see kind of how much has changed between the various iterations of the characters and the world. And there were... I had some mixed feelings about it in general, and I'll start off with the positives. The atmosphere was really good. I loved the opening sequence, had a really great build-up to the action. The art style is really cool. There's a lot of detail in the character designs and the faces, like, you see lips, you see little creases under the eyes, you'll see the wrinkles on the knuckles as characters are moving. I thought that was really cool. I like that extra layer of detail. There are certain times where the character designs can look a little off-model, but I still really like the level of detail in it. The action scenes were pretty cool. I really liked how cool Saya was as a character, just like this boss fighting woman with a sword. who wasn't super sexualized or fetishized or anything. I always love that. I guess you could argue about the school uniform, but
It's not like she was the only one wearing a school uniform.
yeah.
Plenty of other people. For me, this was a really perplexing view because I didn't know anything about it except that maybe vampires were in the title. And I'm like, all right, vampire detective work might be pretty cool. And 5 minutes in, I was like, oh, I must have clicked on the wrong version. And and then I realized that this is just how it is. And by that I mean I was expecting the whole thing to be in Japanese or the whole thing to be in English, but they switch in between Japanese and English, and it was really weird because the voice actor for Saya, I am not a fan of.
Yeah.
There's a lot of voice actor problems, I think, throughout the movie, but hers was just really bad. Like, in the first scene where the guy was just like, how's it going? She's like, do you want them to hear you? Oh no. And I paused it. I was like, where's the sub version? And,
Where's the real version?
Yeah, it's exactly what I said. I'm like, oh, I messaged you. I'm like, oh, I must have clicked on I'm like, what version did you click on?
And I'm just like, nope, that's it.
Yeah. And the other thing was, I will agree with you. Now I think I am more willing to accept the art style. Before I found it a little off-putting, but I do actually kind of like what they did because it's definitely different and it strikes itself from anything I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But certain characters, including Saya, also looked like blobfish people, which are the best fish in the world, if anyone doesn't know. It was a very quirky kind of movie for me to watch, too, because there are times when I thought that either the design really looked cool, is very striking, but the way the characters moved, like, threw me off.
Yeah.
And made me, like, laugh. Like, there's a scene towards the end where this, like, G-Man is, like, running up to Saya, and it looks like he's float running. Like, he's like, ho! 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 I know you can't see that, but I think you can imagine what a guy running where he's making those sounds would, like, it was like his arms were, like, suspended in air and then drop down and do it again. But I will say, I think, and I don't mean this as a slam, I actually think this is interesting. Saya is a very interesting character when she doesn't talk. Mostly because I think her voice actress is terrible. But the other thing is that there's a very... I think the trope is called the man with no name.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't looked that up, but this is just what I know. Where you have a character who is... It's the silent protagonist. They rarely speak, and they use their actions to forward the story more. And the one character that I could think of is the Clint Eastwood gunman from the Dollars trilogy movies, the man with no name. He rarely talks. When he does, it's just very simple statements that get the point across, but he speaks more with his actions. And I think that's really cool because that's just something that really appeals to me. And it's a girl wielding a sword around, and she's just killing vampires.
Yeah.
Chiroticians, practors. I don't know what they're called.
Corrupted.
But I think that's interesting because I don't really know many female silent protagonists off the top of my head. So that was actually really interesting for me to see.
Yeah, definitely. And if we get to Saya's character a little bit, it's interesting to see her in this because I'm so used to her in the 50 episode series where she's vastly different. But in this, she has pretty much one emotion the whole time, and that's anger. And, I think that would be okay if maybe we got some insight as to why she was like that, and if we had a little bit of character development to balance it out. And it doesn't even have to be her character development. We had through a big chunk of the movie, we had this other character, the school nurse, who kind of gets caught up in the happenings with the Chiropterans and ends up kind of tagging along with Saya and having to fight a little bit and defend herself. And I think that she could have worked as a proxy for the protagonist where Saya failed in gaining that kind of sympathy, because if she was supposed to be like the silent, mysterious girl, that could have worked as long as we had like the nurse to see through the nurse's eyes and see some kind of development there, maybe through Saya, through her interactions with Saya. But and I think this is where the failings of the movie definitely become very prominent. There were no character arcs. There were tons of plot holes and stuff just left completely unanswered and unaddressed.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a bit of a letdown in that respect because
Yeah.
you do have this character who is hunting vampires, and I look at that and I'm like, okay, that's awesome. Why? I want to know because that's something that's interesting, and you don't really find out in this. And like you said, there is a series. So what I'm wondering is, would it make more sense if I watched the series first, or am I meant to watch the series first and then this?
The series, while it's related, it's very separate. So it's
Okay.
basically just the same general concept that's expanded in a whole different way. So you have it's like an alternate universe. Like the characters look very different. You have some of the same ones. You have Saya, you have David and Lewis, who are the two organization guys that she works with. But the 50 episode series expands vastly on the world and on what the Chiropterans are and how they function. At the end of this movie, you see Saya kind of dribbling some of her blood into a Chiropteran's mouth as it's laying and dying. And you're kind of like, what is this? Because you find out that Saya's a vampire, but so are these Chiropterans. So what's the difference between them? Does she feel
Yeah.
some kind of kinship with them? Why is she having this moment of apparent tenderness with this Chiropteran? In the 50 episode series, it's interesting because they have this bit of lore where the Chiropterans are only capable of being killed with Saya's blood.
Oh, okay.
So she's got a sword that's got like a rivulet down the middle that she'll like bleed into, and when she stabs it with her blood-filled sword, it'll turn to stone and it'll die.
That's pretty interesting.
It's
actually.
really interesting, and I would love to talk about that series with you on this, but it's so long.
But we didn't talk about it. We talked about this.
We talked about this instead for now.
That's really interesting because it gives a little bit more, like you said, world building to it. And the thing that really threw me off was, like you said, there was a tender scene, and the character's been angry throughout this whole thing. And out of nowhere, she's like very somber, and I'm thinking, well, this isn't really like a deserved tender moment.
Yeah.
It's kind of just off-putting and also silly because it's a dying vampire
Monster
goat
thing.
It looks like a chupacabra. And it's like, and she's like, I'm so sorry. It's like, I wouldn't be very sorry. It's quite a dead thing you just killed there. I think the nurse could have been a really interesting character if they'd gone somewhere with it, because she's like the patient zero almost of this whole thing. Like, she was with the girls at the school and she saw the demise of the particular Chiropteran. And then she's interviewed at the end. So that would have been very interesting to see where it went from there. And they almost had it, but it just wasn't there, because I think the nurse was just sort of like an oafish kind of character, which you can do,
Right.
I think, in a situation like this, but just wasn't really, like, it wasn't her story, and she didn't really add too much to it.
No.
So you're kind of left with, like, she's circumstantial in a way. Like, the one thing she does do is she drives the car to break down the door.
Yeah.
And she almost kills herself right before that, too. It's like a very, like, triumphant, I guess, perceived triumphant moment, but it's also like, why didn't you kill yourself? The girl told you, if you want an easy way out, kill yourself. And the girl is about to die, and then she's like, I could help her. And I mean, she does, but it's just very strange to me, because, like...
Yeah, it didn't seem like there was much rhyme or reason to anything that happened. And it's a shame, because it was really cool visually for the most part. There were some really nicely animated scenes to, I think, balance out the scenes that looked awkward.
Yeah, the most awkward scene for me was, like, anytime Saya was shushing someone, because she just kind of, like, jumbled, like, three fingers into their mouth, like...
What? I don't remember.
Yeah, like, I don't think you've ever... It was, like, in the very beginning of the movie, and she did it again to the nurse, I think, whereas, like, she silenced them by putting her hand in front of their mouth, but, like, the way the hand looked in front of the mouth looked like the hand was all warped, so it was like...
Oh, she was, like, grabbing them.
She's grabbing them by the mouth, though. I was like, what?
Yeah.
It was really weird, and I've never seen anyone do that.
Well, that was another thing that wasn't really explained. Like, you got hints throughout the movie that Saya was a vampire. Pretty obvious. You know, David's like, she's the last of the originals!
Yeah, and then he was just like, don't piss her off! And I was like, why?
Yeah. But then also, like, Lewis is like, Jesus. And then she grabs him. And then the nurse starts to pray later on in the movie,
Oh, with the
gets
cross,
her
yeah.
cross, and she, like, grabs the cross and flings it across the room and is like, don't do that. And it's like, okay. But there's never really anything explained, like, would that hurt you?
Yeah. She's just like very distraught about it.
Like, how intelligent are the Chiropterans? What are their goals? Are they trying to eat people? Because I don't think they ever eat people that we see over the course of the movie. There are these apparent suicides that are attributed to them, I guess, but why would they fake a suicide if they needed to eat them?
If they ate the person, how is it a suicide? Do they like eat them by like making a perceived bullet hole in their head and like, yeah, they shot themselves in the brain and they just like suck everything out?
I, I, I
I
don't
want
know.
to I want to see this case file of suicides that are apparently so convincing that it did not look like someone had eaten the body.
Right.
They killed themselves by frying them and turning them into chicken. The only thing that's left is this bucket of KFC.
There were so many, like, plot elements that just weren't connected to anything. In the beginning of the movie, for example, Saya kills a guy on a train.
Yeah, that was cool.
It was awesome. It was a really cool scene. And then David is like, okay, now you gotta do this. But Lewis goes in and he's like, this guy is not a Chiropteran. That was a human being. If this was a Chiropteran, he would have changed his form by now. And so it's like, now, wait, did we get the wrong person? Or what's the deal with this? But they never come back to that. It's never explained. It's like, okay, now the person we're supposed to be rooting for as a protagonist has just slaughtered an innocent person and shows no regret or remorse, and it's never brought up again.
Which I think would have actually made for a very interesting movie in itself of a guy who's like a dirty Harry, like, I do things by the books. I don't fuck around. And then they like just mess up everything and don't take responsibility for. Oh wait, that's our bird.
Oh my gosh. But can I just say, I loved how Saya just gave no fucks about anything. Like, she was in the middle of like a crowded Halloween party full of people, and she's just like flinging her sword out to do close quarters combat with a giant monster. She does not care at all. That was really funny.
To be fair, no one else seemed to give a real big deal about it either.
That's
they were
true.
too busy doing the monster mash.
Do the monster mash.
Hey, monster mash. that song used to scare me as a kid.
Really? I loved it.
I think it scared me because I have an overactive imagination and I pictured all the monsters doing it and the rattling of the chains in the beginning. I have a very overactive imagination, and it really gets the better of me sometimes. This is not a therapeutic episode, though. This is an episode about Vampire Hunter D. So let's wrap this up.
That was actually a contender for our topic of discussion, but not this time.
I do not remember what we watched. I can't remember the title ever.
Blood the Last Vampire.
I keep wanting to call it Blood Plus for some reason. Is that the show?
That's
Blood Plus?
that's the 50 episode series.
All right, Brother Blood from Teen Titans. Okay, how would you sum it up?
I would say that it's got a really flashy exterior, but it's pretty hollow. And it was entertaining enough to watch, but it didn't really have any kind of character development or concrete plot, and so I thought it was kind of forgettable. I'm kind of surprised it had the kind of reception that it did, considering that.
Do you think it's because the fan base really enjoyed it?
I think that's probably it. And I can definitely see appreciating it for the art style. That was my cat. I can definitely see appreciating it for the art style and the animation, but it's not something I would really write home about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm glad that it spawned other things because I really do enjoy the series that came after it.
Yeah, for me, I was kind of disappointed because I was looking forward to a good monster show like this.
Yeah.
I kind of like a lot of shows where it's about not necessarily the supernatural, but this weird universe where monsters and humans actually do exist.
Yeah.
And you have like monster associations and agencies to either integrate them into human society or kill them because they're evil, or you find out that they're not evil. I was thinking about like very early episodes of Yu Yu Hakusho back when the focus of it was really on him being a spirit detective and tracing down all these demons and figuring out what the heck was going on, and the subplot about them kidnapping, and it was interesting that. And this I don't think I was originally going into it thinking of that, but I see these government agents in the first several minutes, and pretty much a girl that is killing vampires. So I was hoping that it was gonna be like, here's your next assignment, and this movie was gonna be about that assignment, but it was really just kind of a jumble of things.
It was pretty much just slash it all up.
Yeah, nothing really substantial for me.
Yeah. Well, we'll watch the series someday.
Maybe. I've always wanted to watch. What's another vampire themed thing I could make fun of? I don't know. Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. Anyway, so this is gonna wrap us up, right?
Yeah, I think so. We have been Discount Ramblepants.
Wait, you gotta say the like, comments, and stuff.
Oh yeah. Like, comment, subscribe if you want to, I guess.
All right.
No
I
pressure.
Can see you really phoned it in there.
We're Discount Ramblepants.
And remember, this is the moral. This is going to be a very tender moment because we're going to do a moral at the end of the episode. If something doesn't make sense, just stab it in the face.
That's the biggest thing we can take away from the show, I think.
That's what my grandmama told me before she stabbed me in the face.
Oh, I guess you didn't make sense.
No, I'm just ugly. Have a good night, and good day, and happy spooky seasons.
Bye-bye.